Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez never expected his routine patrol of the Centauri border to make history. The distress beacon's pulse caught his attention as he guided his scout ship through the asteroid field that marked the edge of human space. The signal wasn't using any recognized frequency, military or civilian. "Command, I'm picking up an unusual distress signal in Sector 7, he reported, already adjusting his course, requesting permission to investigate. The response came through with the usual quantum com delay. "Permission granted, Lieutenant. Maintain standard first contact protocols." As Marcus navigated closer, the source became clear. A sleek vessel unlike anything in human records, its hull gleaming with an almost organic iridescence. The ship bore obvious damage from weapons fire, its port side riddled with precision hits that spoke of a professional attack rather than a random pirate raid. The docking procedure took longer than usual, the alien ship's architecture requiring careful adaptation of standard protocols. Inside, the atmosphere was breathable, but thin, tinted with an odd purple hue that his suit's sensors identified as trace elements of an unknown noble gas. He found the survivor in what appeared to be the bridge, a tall crystalline being with faceted limbs that caught and reflected light in mesmerizing patterns. The alien lay partially crystallized, its core showing signs of severe trauma. "I am Crystal Arch Nix of the Luminous Concordat," the being communicated directly into Marcus's mind. "You should not be here, human." Marcus was already pulling out his medkit, his training overriding any hesitation about first contact protocols. "Save your strength, Crystal Arch. I'm trained in xenomorphic first aid. Your kindness is wasted. I am already transforming to my final state." The being's crystalline surface was indeed spreading, turning opaque. "But perhaps it is providence that brought you here." As Marcus worked to stabilize the alien's core temperature, Nix shared a story that chilled him more than the vacuum of space. The major galactic powers, the hegemony, the consortium, and others, had been systematically suppressing emerging civilizations, humanity included. They engineered conflicts, manipulated economies, and strictly controlled technological advancement. "Your species presents an unprecedented threat," Nix continued, each word seeming to cost more energy. "Your capacity for advancement, your adaptability, but most dangerous of all, your empathy." "Our empathy?" Marcus asked, watching his medical scanner's readings deteriorate despite his best efforts. "How is helping others dangerous?" "Because it is unconditional. You help even your enemies. You show mercy when there is no profit in it. The established powers cannot predict or control such behavior." The crystallization was accelerating. Marcus could see vital signs failing across multiple spectrums. Nix pressed a crystal into his hand, a data storage device, he realized. "This contains proof of everything. The suppression programs, the engineered conflicts, the manipulation of 1,000 species. Your people must know, must understand." "I'll make sure it reaches the right people," Marcus promised, knowing he was witnessing the being's final moments. "They will come for you," Nix warned, the mental voice growing weaker. "When they learn of this, they will try to destroy this evidence, destroy your people, before the truth spreads." "Let them try," Marcus replied firmly. "We humans have a long history of fighting for what's right." The crystal arch's surface had almost completely transformed to opaque crystal. "Perhaps that is why you were meant to find me. Your species might be the only one strong enough to break their hold, brave enough to fight, compassionate enough to do it for the right reasons." Those were the being's final words. The crystallization completed, leaving behind a beautiful but lifeless sculpture that caught and refracted the emergency lights in haunting patterns. Marcus stood slowly, the data crystal feeling impossibly heavy in his hand. He knew that the moment he reported this, everything would change. Humanity's place in the galaxy, their understanding of their own history, the future they thought they were building. It would all be transformed. "Command," He transmitted, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "We have a situation. Priority Ultra One. Please inform the Admiralty. First contact has occurred, and we have a major diplomatic incident on our hands." As he waited for the response, Marcus looked at the crystalline form of Nyx, wondering if this was how many of humanity's great changes began. Not with grand schemes or elaborate plans, but with simple acts of kindness in moments of crisis. The data crystal's contents sent shockwaves through Earth's diplomatic corps. Admiral Rhea Patel stood before the United Earth Council, her holographic presentation showing evidence of centuries of manipulation. "The hegemony and consortium have been playing a long game," she explained, gesturing to the complex web of connections. "Every trade agreement, every border skirmish, every technological breakthrough, all carefully orchestrated to keep emerging civilizations dependent and divided." The council chamber erupted in voices until Chairman Harrison called for order. "What's our exposure? How compromised are we?" "Less than they intended," Rhea replied. "Lieutenant Rodriguez's encounter with Crystal Arch Nyx has given us a unique advantage. They don't know we have this information yet." Screens displayed intercepted communications from across known space. The death of a Crystal Arch, a rare and respected species, had caught the attention of major powers, but more concerning was how it died, receiving aid from a human. "They've spent centuries painting humanity as dangerous barbarians," Rhea continued. "Lieutenant Rodriguez's actions don't fit their narrative. It's causing ripples." Intelligence reports streamed in. On frontier worlds, stories spread about the human who tried to save a dying Crystal Arch. In spaceports and trading hubs, people whispered about Earth's medical technology, their willingness to help even potential enemies. "We're seeing unprecedented interest in human medical practices," reported Dr. Kai Nakamura, Earth's xenobiological expert. "Several independent worlds have requested training programs. They're particularly interested in our emergency response protocols." "It gets better," Rhea added. "The Luminous Concordat, Nyx's people, have reached out privately. They've suspected the manipulation for centuries but lacked proof. They're offering an alliance." Chairman Harrison leaned forward. "The Crystal Arcs are one of the oldest species in known space. Their support would change everything." "Exactly," Rhea smiled. "The hegemony and consortium built their power on keeping species isolated and mistrustful. But they never counted on humanity's most unpredictable trait, our instinct to help." The debate raged for hours. Some counselors advocated caution, others pushed for immediate action. Finally, Harrison called for a vote. "We didn't ask for this fight," he declared, "but we won't shy away from it. Earth will stand for something greater than power politics. We'll show the galaxy another way." The response was fast and furious. The hegemony denounced Earth as dangerous upstarts. The consortium imposed trade sanctions, but with each attempt to isolate humanity, more species began to question the status quo. Lieutenant Rodriguez found himself summoned to Earth. Standing before the council, he remained composed despite the gravity of the situation. "I was just doing my job," he stated simply when asked about his actions. "Any human would have done the same." "That's exactly the point," Rhea said. "Your simple act of compassion has become a symbol. The galaxy is ready for change, Lieutenant. They just needed to see it was possible." As the council session ended, Harrison shared a final observation. "For centuries, they feared we would fight them. Instead, we'll transform them. With kindness they never expected and truth they can't deny." The wheels of change were turning. Across the galaxy, species began to see humanity not as barbarians, but as liberators. The age of manipulation was ending. And it all started with one human, following their instinct to help. The revolution began not with weapons, but with healing hands. Independent worlds started adopting human medical protocols. Trade ships carried not just cargo, but knowledge of emergency response techniques. The Luminous Concordat's crystalline vessels now hosted human medical teams, their combined knowledge creating breakthroughs in xenobiology. Commander Talia West oversaw the first interspecies medical exchange on the neutral world of Haven. Representatives from 30 species gathered to learn human first aid techniques, sharing their own medical knowledge in return. The hegemony told us humans were dangerous. A reptilian Sauron delegate commented during a suture demonstration. They never mentioned you would teach us to save lives. The consortium's attempts to maintain control grew increasingly desperate. They raised tariffs, restricted travel, and spread propaganda about human aggression. But their efforts backfired as more species witnessed human actions firsthand. The breaking point came when a consortium warship attacked a human medical vessel responding to a distress call. The ship's final transmission showed the medical team continuing to treat wounded even as their ship lost power. The footage spread across the galaxy. The luminous Concordat formally denounced the consortium. Independent worlds began breaking treaties. Even within the hegemony, worlds started demanding autonomy. On Earth, Admiral Patel received a surprising message. A group of consortium scientists, disgusted by their leadership's actions, offered to defect. They'd brought with them evidence of more manipulation and advanced technology that had been kept hidden from emerging species. They thought suppressing our development would keep us weak, Dr. Nakamura observed, studying the new data. Instead, it forced us to become more creative, more resilient. We achieved things their way never predicted. The luminous Concordat's analysis confirmed it. Humanity's isolated development had produced unique approaches to problems. Their medical techniques, combining multiple species knowledge with human innovation, were revolutionizing healthcare across known space. Lieutenant Rodriguez, now heading the medical exchange program, saw it firsthand. Species that had been historical enemies worked together in his classes, united by the desire to help others. Every time we teach someone to save a life, he told his students, we prove the old powers wrong. They built their control on fear and division. We'll replace it with knowledge and cooperation. The movement grew beyond medicine. Worlds began adopting other human practices, transparent governance, free information exchange, collaborative research. The rigid hierarchies of the old powers crumbled against this tide of change. A young Sauron healer, applying human techniques to save a consortium citizen, perhaps summed it up best. They taught us to fear difference. Humans taught us to embrace it. They showed us that true strength lies not in controlling others, but in helping them grow. The galaxy was transforming, one act of healing at a time, and humanity, the species that had been meant to remain suppressed, was leading the way, not through force, but through the simple, powerful act of sharing knowledge. The revolution they had feared hadn't come with warships and weapons. It had come with open hands and open hearts, and there was no stopping it now. The consortium's final gambit came without warning. Fleets appeared at strategic points across known space, threatening to destroy any world that maintained ties with Earth. They expected fear to restore their control. They were wrong. The response began with the luminous Concordat. Their crystalline ships formed a protective network around threatened worlds. Independent species, trained in human emergency protocols, coordinated massive evacuation and relief efforts. The consortium's attempt at intimidation instead demonstrated how much the galaxy had changed. They don't understand what they're fighting, Admiral Patel told the Earth Council. Their power came from keeping species isolated and afraid. That galaxy doesn't exist anymore. The proof came in waves. Consortium crews, faced with orders to attack civilian targets, began defecting. Hegemony worlds, seeing the consortium's desperation, declared neutrality. Even their own subject species turned against them, choosing humanity's offered friendship over enforced servitude. Lieutenant Rodriguez, watching refugee ships dock at Haven, saw the true victory. Species that once would have fought each other now worked seamlessly together, using human-taught protocols to handle the crisis. Their coordination made the consortium's military advantage meaningless. Your people have done something remarkable, a crystalline elder told him. You've proven that cooperation is stronger than coercion. That trust builds better defenses than fear. The consortium's offensive collapsed within weeks. Their fleets, facing unified resistance and internal rebellion, retreated to their core systems. The hegemony, seeing the writing on the wall, began negotiations for a new galactic charter. But the real changes were happening on smaller scales. On Haven, Commander West watched representatives from former enemy species work together to establish new medical facilities. Military ships were being converted to hospital vessels. The weapons of war were giving way to tools of healing. "We never wanted to fight them," Dr. Nakamura observed, supervising the adaptation of consortium military technology for medical use. "We just wanted to show them a better way." The cost had not been small. Worlds had been damaged, lives had been lost. But from the destruction, something new emerged. A galaxy where species worked together instead of against each other, where knowledge was shared instead of hoarded, where compassion was seen as strength rather than weakness. And at the heart of it all was a simple truth. Humanity's greatest weapon had never been their technology or their military might. It had been their willingness to help, to teach, to show kindness even to enemies. The price of kindness had been high, but its reward was transforming the galaxy in ways the old powers had never imagined possible. A year after the consortium's failed offensive, Earth hosted the first galactic concordance. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered to formalize the new order, not an empire or a hierarchy, but a cooperative of equals. The signing ceremony took place in a rebuilt medical facility on Haven. Lieutenant Rodriguez, now Director of Interspecies Relations, watched as former enemies signed treaties of mutual aid and cooperation. The old powers thought control came from force. Admiral Patel addressed the gathering. Humanity showed that true strength comes from lifting others up, not holding them down. The changes were profound. The luminous Concordat shared their ancient knowledge freely. Former consortium worlds contributed their advanced technology. Species that had been enemies for millennia now collaborated on solving common problems. Most significantly, the principles that had started with human medical protocols expanded into all areas of interstellar relations. Emergency response teams became diplomatic corps. Military vessels transformed into exploration ships. The galaxy's resources, once hoarded by the powerful, were now shared for common benefit. Dr. Nakamura's team made perhaps the most stunning breakthrough, a universal medical protocol that could adapt to any species. It symbolized everything the new order stood for, combining knowledge freely shared, solving problems together, helping all. "We didn't set out to change the galaxy," Rodriguez reflected, watching ships from a dozen species coordinate a relief mission. "We just couldn't ignore someone who needed help." The Crystallarchs, their ancient wisdom now merged with human innovation, put it best. "For millennia, we watched powers rise and fall through force. Humanity showed us power could come from compassion, strength from cooperation, victory from healing rather than hurting." The final piece came when the remaining consortium worlds requested to join the new alliance, not as rulers or subjects, but as equals learning to build something better. Earth's place in the galaxy had indeed transformed, not into the empire the old powers feared, but into something they never imagined. A teacher, a healer, a catalyst for change. And it had all begun with one simple act of kindness, one person choosing to help rather than turn away. In the end, that had been the most powerful force of all, the choice to be human at its best, and in doing so, to show the galaxy a better way. The new dawn had arrived, not with the thunder of warships, but with the quiet strength of helping hands and healing hearts. And in that dawn, all species could finally see a future worth building together.